I now hand the conference over to Mr. Urvil Bhatt from IIFL Securities Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thanks, Stephen. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of IIFL Securities Limited, I welcome you all to Vardhman Special Steels Limited 4Q FY21 results conference call. From the management side, we have Mr. Sachit Jain, Vice Chairman and Managing Director, along with his team. Over to you, Sachit, for your opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining our call. Along with me are Sanjeev Singla, our CFO, Sonam, our Company Secretary, Mukesh Srivastava, our Chief Operating Officer, as well as our investor relations firm, Bridge Capital with Savli and her team, and also my daughter Soumya is on the call. She is getting inducted gradually into the business. A couple of things about last year. Last year has been a very challenging year, as you all know. When we began this year, it was gloom all through. With the lockdown happened, we didn't know when things would restart. There was panic. We used that opportunity, of course, to build our teams much stronger together. Couple of decisions we had taken right in the beginning. One, we said there'll be no layoffs. Two, we said we will protect the salaries of all workers, officers, management. And in addition, we also said we'll protect the wages of all contractor workers. I think the last part, protecting contractor workers, we would be one of the few companies in the country that did that. Even large MNCs and very professional companies would have let go of contractor workers. But we made sure that all contractor workers were paid in full. So we looked after our people, and we also used the lockdown time to communicate with people, tell them not to panic. Please imagine somebody sitting in a one-room flat or a two-room flat or a three-room flat, between a small one-room to three-room flat, who cannot move out of the house and who's seeing television and newspapers talking about panic everywhere. Just sitting at home can go mad. Fortunately, our entire management team, Mukesh Srivastava, my CEO, and he played the lead role out there. But all of us were communicating every day through the length and breadth of our organization not to panic. We are there with you. So those are the kind of things we did. Our team became much stronger, and by the time the lockdown lifted and the demand started picking up, little bit coming in, our team was highly motivated because they saw the contrast of how our organization looked after its people compared to other organizations. So the sense of belongingness to the organization and motivation went high. And overall, they contributed a lot to the organization's building up capacity because, as you all recall, demand suddenly shot up. And for many companies, supply chain bottlenecks came in because they could not meet the supply. Luckily for us, because our entire team was together, united with the organization, we could meet all the requirements as and when they came. In July, we decided also that if the company moves into profit zone, we will even declare increments for the year. And we declared increments for all our staff and officers. In addition, we also gave additional one-time incentives down the line from senior management down to all our workers, even contractor workers. So that was a one-time exceptional item which we charged in the third quarter. Fourth quarter has been even better performance than what we anticipated because we got a good price increase from January. As you know, we have 6 monthly price settlement with the auto companies. So since we had already got the October settlement, our next price settlement was due only in April. And when the raw material prices shot up abnormally, it became too much for us to handle, and we had to go back to the OEMs and ask for an interim increase. Luckily, we were able to get those interim increases. We got increase of 6,200 from most of the OEMs, and so because of that, we were able to report a better than expected fourth quarter. The other highlight of the year has been that, if you recall, a few years ago I had said that we'll be targeting to reach 18% EBITDA on capital employed as our target. I'm happy to report for last year we managed 19.55%. So we are now getting ready to say that next couple of years we will stay north of 20%, because the next question will come, is this performance sustainable? So very clearly, we target to remain above 20% EBITDA on capital employed, and we target to reach 25% EBITDA on capital employed by the year 24-25. This is, of course, after our environmental approval comes and we're able to expand our capacity, and number two, with Aichi, our partners, filling up the capacity with their requirements. The second area I want to share with you is, in the earlier call we had said we had upped the target for EBITDA per ton from 4,500 to 6,000 rupees. Our earlier target, we had moved it to 5,000 to 7,000. I'm happy to say that we are now upping that range again to 6,000 to 8,000 rupees a ton. Once our environment approval comes in and we start filling up our capacity, this range of 6 to 8 will move to 7 to 9,000. And once our, again, Aichi capacity starts filled in with Aichi products, which should take by 24-25, we will be targeting about 10,000 rupees, 9 to 10,000 rupees EBITDA per ton. So as I said earlier, that we will be upping our targets as we go along. I'm happy to note that after close of the previous year, we are in this position to say these would be our targets. The next target that you'll be happy to note in this year's balance sheet, our net debt equity has come down to 0.3:1. We have also now almost finalized our investment plan along with Aichi. Again, some part of this investment plan is subject to the environmental approval coming in. If that happens, which again, as I said, we hope to get it later this year, we expect to invest about 250 to 270 crores in the next 5 years. And in addition to this investment plan, we have also targeted that in the next 5 to 6 years, with the current capacity of this current plant and the current operations, we expect to be close to a zero debt company in the next 5 to 6 years. Of course, in the interim, from now to then, if plans of an acquisition or an expansion or a new project comes in, situation could be different. But on the current foreseeable plans, as firm plans, we expect to be a zero debt company, near a zero debt company in the next 5 to 6 years. Overall, for the year, 44 crore net profit has been the highest profit we've ever got. Also, 116 crore EBITDA is the highest EBITDA that we got. I was also very happy to see that for the year, our volumes have been 9.5% higher than previous year. So this is something, despite the first quarter being a washout, in the next 3 quarters we've been able to cover up that. So overall, I would say I'm reasonably satisfied with the performance. And lastly, we have been able to give our maiden dividend at 15%, so 1.5 rupees a share. This 1.5 rupees per share was just to start with. In the next year or two, we will come out with a comprehensive stated dividend payout policy. So we just to start with, we've given this figure, but I presume that what I would like to see in the next couple of years, that our dividend payout policy, as we stated, should be higher than this as a percentage of payout. This year, that 15% also works out to near 15% as payout. That is just by chance. I would expect in the next couple of years, of course, subject to board approval, we would like to, as management, we'd like to propose to the board that at least 20 to 25% should be the payout formula moving as we move along. These are some of the highlights of the previous year. And last but not the least, CRISIL has upped our outlook from AA negative outlook to AA stable outlook. So that means that our ability to raise capital at better rates than before goes up. We've been able to raise rates at good rates from the commercial paper market. And this year, probably, I think we'll have to also raise NCDs as part of the government new norms. So we'll probably be coming in for an NCD issue sometime in the current financial year. The next question many people would have would be, is the fourth quarter performance sustainable? Very clearly, a 54 crore EBITDA that we've got in the fourth quarter is beyond our stated range of 6,000 to 8,000 rupees a ton. It's beyond our range of 7,000 to 9,000 rupees a ton that we expect to get after the environmental approval, and it's beyond even the 10,000 rupees per ton that we expect to get with Aichi business coming in. So please do not multiply that by 4 and put that as an expectation for the next year. However, for next year also, we do expect our overall EBITDA and volumes to be better than 2021. Of course, with the COVID situation, suddenly which came in, hit us all by surprise. April was a very good month. May, our production and sales are going to be down a bit because of these lockdowns and shutdowns of plants by Maruti, Hero, Hyundai. So basically, all the OEMs have taken shutdowns, long shutdowns. So clearly, demand is a little lower than what we had estimated. Secondly, our production is also a little lower, as some of you may know that there is a massive shortage everywhere, oxygen shortage everywhere. But as some of you would know, that in Ludhiana, we have diverted oxygen from our production, and we've been sending almost 2,000 cylinders of oxygen per day into Ludhiana and some of the surrounding districts of Ludhiana. I have stated publicly that we will not allow any oxygen shortage in the city of Ludhiana. There were times we were supplying almost 60% of the oxygen requirement of Ludhiana. And this is our commitment to the city and to the state that we will continue to serve. So that will take higher priority than production as long as this current pandemic is going on. So because of oxygen shortage availability for production, some production has gone down. Plus, we've also shifted a bit some of our raw material to those raw materials that consume less oxygen. So that has also changed our production a bit. So the production goes down because of both these reasons. Moving ahead, in this year, we have a planned shutdown of about 15 days, which was earlier planned for August. But as some of the suppliers started telling us that there would be delays because of COVID problems, lockdowns, shutdowns, and so on. So we have to come back and decide the new dates of the shutdown. So even if there is a slowdown from the market, we will continue to run our production full stream to build up stocks to be able to serve our customers at the end at this shutdown. As regards Aichi, you will again be happy to note that we have sent out our first samples to our customers, for Aichi operations in Thailand and Aichi operations in Philippines and to head office in Japan. In addition to Aichi's own business, own requirements, many other Japanese companies, as they have come to know about Aichi's relationship with Vardhman, so more and more Japanese companies are approaching Aichi to source material from us for Southeast Asia. So as those materials, also sampling requirements are coming in. So I would say 21-22 is the year of samples. 22-23 will be the year of trial orders, and of course volume will start coming in for exports. And really 23-24 is the year where we will start seeing the potential of Aichi and the Japanese requirements from Southeast Asia, as well as import substitutions within the country, which are coming in from Japan. So these are the overall highlights. And sorry, one last figure also. We have worked a lot on working capital. So we have been able to maintain our total capital employed, net capital employed. When I say net, I remove the 50 crore FD that is there, which is meant for capex. We've been able to maintain that net capital employed below 600 crores. And despite price increases, we expect even next year we will target to keep it around 600 crores net capital employed. As we start this financial year, the raw materials have continued to rise exponentially, and so we are negotiating with the OEMs for the April increase. Those are still under discussion. One OEM is already settled at a reasonable price for us. We are happy with that settlement. The other OEMs, since they were shut down, the plants were shut down, I think the serious discussions really start next week. So over the next week to 2 weeks, we hope to finalize the price settlements with the other OEMs. So based on that, first quarter of this year, though not comparable to last quarter of the previous year, but the first quarter of this year should also be a reasonably good quarter. And this time we made another change. We are negotiating with the OEMs only for 3 months because of this unprecedented volatility in markets. So this current discussion with OEMs is only for the first quarter, April to June. Normally it is for 6 months, and for July onwards we'll be discussing with the OEMs for another change, and in all probabilities, because of the raw material situation, we'll be asking for an increase. So this is what I have as part of my opening remarks and comments. And after this, we'll be open for Q&A. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Shalini Vasanta from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Sir, hi, this is Vivek Ramakrishnan. Congratulations on the performance and really heartening to know about the contractor and the oxygen. So double congratulations from us. Sir, what I wanted to know is you were talking about EBITDA going up. How does it happen? Is it because you have products which are less in competition, the value add is so much, and in which case, what is the nature of the value add? And second question is, you had also mentioned that you're going to look at exports from 23-24 onwards is when it will pick up. Is there a target for exports as percentage of sales? Thank you.
Sure. So the EBITDA per ton rising, there are primarily 2 components, and both are cost components as of now, cost-related components. So one area of cost is that as volumes go to full volume, fixed cost gets spread over a bigger volume. Also, some of the variable costs like power are really, there's an element of it which is variable and an element of power which is fixed. Similarly, oil, which is a variable cost, which is used for heating, there are wastages there and losses out there. As volumes increase and utilization increases, so the consumption per ton goes down. Manpower, which is a variable cost really, but at full capacity, those manpower increase is minimal, only in inspection area and loading unloading. So only those costs go up, every other cost remains same. So the cost per ton goes down because of just increased volumes. That's one element of cost going down. The second element of cost going down is the last 1.5 years we worked a lot on our costs, starting from raw material by changing our raw material mix that we did. So that is one element of cost reduction. The second element of cost reduction is internal cost reduction, where our people have worked hard. Aichi has given us a method called 3R: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Under this 3R, we have got more than 1,000 suggestions from our workers, and we used the lockdown period to get those suggestions, to put cross-functional team to work on the suggestions, and the moment the plant opened up, we were working on those suggestions. So that is, and suggestions have come from workers, officers, managers, everywhere, because the whole culture of the organization is changing as we work with them. Some of the ideas, one idea itself has saved a couple of crore rupees, and some ideas may save only 10,000 or 50,000 rupees. So for us, each idea is important, and that each worker participates in the idea generation. So this has changed the overall, again, as I said earlier, the culture of the organization. We haven't reached the Japanese culture, long way to go, but we have come a long way from where we were. So I would say, and that's what I keep telling my Japanese partners also, Vardhman Special Steels will not be an Indian company, will not be a Japanese company. It will be an Indo-Japanese company. So the culture will hopefully draw in the best from the Indian culture and draw in the best from the Japanese culture. That is what we aspire to be. I'm not saying we'll succeed in doing that, but that is what we aspire to be. So on this front, this is the reason for the margin, what we think EBITDA per ton going up. So it has got nothing to do with product mix as of now. However, as Aichi business comes in, that product mix is clearly a superior product mix. So those, when they start kicking in from 23, 24, 25, that is when I said that the EBITDA per ton will actually go up because of product mix. And our target of exports at that time is about 20 to 25%. Currently, our export percentage is less than 5%. So there's almost the entire increase in capacity will basically go in for exports at superior products where there's no competition at superior margins.
Perfect, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah, very well. So if I can just sneak in one more question, in terms of electricity costs, is there any way of hedging it by putting up your own solar capacities or?
No. We have. This is an electric arc furnace where you cannot. The shocks are so high you cannot have your own generation. And then to set up a separate plant to feed to the grid, then you get into the power business. We are clear we're in the steel business, we are not in the power business.
Perfect, sir. Thank you very much. Good luck.
And before we have the next question, there are a couple of other comments that I may bring in out here, which I missed in my opening remarks. In the results, you will see that we have taken some extraordinary write-downs and write-offs also. So, as you all are aware, that we are working to get our environmental approval for expansion. In that environmental approval, there is one element that we are required to have 33% of our area as green area. Now, we did not have 33% within the premises of the organization. So we have demolished a warehouse. So we've written off little over 2 crores on that warehouse. There was some capital work in progress that we have dropped that project. We've written off that. Plus, there are certain other bits. This is already done, so this is written off in the books. And second, there are a few other warehouses that we intend to demolish once we get the approval. So they are still there, existing, but if we get the approval, we'll demolish them. So since as a Vardhman Special Steel, an organization has decided there's no need for those buildings, we can't charge them off because those buildings are existing. We have used the provision of accelerated depreciation to charge off, to reduce the value of those buildings to zero. Roughly 3.43 crores to be exact is the amount of accelerated depreciation that we've written off some buildings. So these are little extraordinary charges of 6.78 crores that we have taken in this quarter. Also, there were, as you are aware, last year we changed our furnace. So there were spare parts of the old furnace. There are other spare parts lying. Some changes we had made in our reheating furnace to get in better fuel economy. So there was a recuperator and those kind of small items, several small items. Roughly 1.4 crores of that has also been charged off in this quarter. This is again a normal course of business. Whenever you modernize, some spare parts, etc., become obsolete and so have to be written off. So that has also been done in this quarter. I just thought I should have clarified it in my opening remarks, and before some questions come on that, better clarify that. Yes, I'm ready for the next question, please.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vipul Sanghvi from Systematic Shares. Please go ahead.
Congratulations and thanks for the opportunity. Congrats, Sachit and team, for a very strong performance on the maiden dividend, and really heartening to know about the oxygen initiative of the company. My questions, one is on the de-risking initiatives that you talked about in the presentation. If you can elaborate a bit that which new industry applications is there on the drawing board, and which new geographies that you would be targeting for the same. And second question, Sachit, can you help us with some guidance as far as the volume this year is concerned, FY22? That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
That's all.
So, as far as de-risking is concerned, there are two kinds of de-risking which can happen. One is you change your product portfolio, move into non-automotive steel. This was on the agenda a few years ago. We were looking for opportunities in those areas. However, since our Aichi partnership has finalized, we have dropped those plans. As already I have shared this earlier in earlier conference calls, and I think in my annual report also I have written that. So that de-risking is not on the cards. The other de-risking is what I answered in my first question is we move to a different geography. Southeast Asia, we are present but in a minor way, but really not as a major supplier, part of a global supply chain of a global auto major. So Vardhman Special Steel is the only alloy steel company in the country that has an opportunity to become a regular partner of the global supply chain of an auto major like Toyota. So this is going to be a huge risk mitigation for us. And as I said earlier, we intend to have 25%, roughly 20 to 25% of our volume in exports by the year 24-25. So that is how we'll be mitigating the risk. And the other part of this mitigation is if something happens to our plant, you suffer production outages. So as Aichi and Vardhman Special Steel have promised to each other, we will support each other in case there are production outages because of accident or those kind of things. So one big risk for us is we are a single plant location. If something happens to our plant for an extended period, our customers will suffer. Thanks to Aichi support, we will have alternate production available if the customers are willing to accept that. So this is the other risk mitigation that we're going to have.
All right. And any guidance on the volume, Sachit, for FY22?
Yeah, so we are expecting between 170 to 180,000 tons for this year. Again, as of now, we don't know how much of an impact COVID would have. So, but at this point, we believe that the COVID impact will not be too much. Like last year, we will lose a few months of demand, but after that demand would bounce back sharply. So as of now, we are expecting 170 to 180,000 tons of sales for this financial year. However, we will know better, and if there's any change in the next conference call after first quarter, we'll come up with an update. And as I shared earlier, April had already started on a very strong note. We were in fact fearing we were going to run into capacity problems because of this lockdown and COVID situation. We'll have time to rebuild our inventories that we are running woefully short of.
That's really helpful, and thanks a lot and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ritvik from One Up Financial Consultant. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Sir, I have a couple of questions. Firstly, can you quantify, the per ton basis of realization gain that we would have in FY21 because of, lower inventory and higher price hike from the OEMs? We would have inventory gain, right? So
21 and inventory gains don't come up in terms of sales realization. So sales realization of 2021 and 1920, it's marginally higher.
Okay.
So I think roughly 900 rupees a ton higher, roughly around 900 rupees a ton higher. So on 61,000 rupees, 900 rupees, 1.6, that's normal fluctuation.
Sure. Okay. So that won't be more than like 1.5 crores for the full year, because if we assume 1,000 rupees and 1.5 lakh ton for the year, which we did as volume, so that will be about 1.5 crores.
15 crores.
15 crores. Okay, 15. Sorry, yeah, 15 crores. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so you mentioned that we are having a lot of cost savings from all the benefits that we have realized from Aichi and even internally that we have done. So going forward, this 6,000 to 8,000 rupees per ton without any product mix change, you think there can be any improvement from here on, or cost savings we have plugged all the low-hanging fruits and now it will be over to the product profile changing and then going gradually towards 9,000 to 10,000 rupees per ton over next 2 years? Would that be a right way to look at it?
In my opening remarks, you already said that we will be upping this from 6 to 8 to the next range will be 7 to 9.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so we will be upping this maybe within a year's time or so. We'll be upping this range. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years. And as of now, because of this massive fluctuation, it's very difficult to even the 6 to 8 that I've said is. My CFO is not very happy when I share these figures, but he's staring at me even now. But 6 to 8, we expect that once this extreme volatility that is currently ongoing goes down, we should be able to move to 7 to 9. And beyond that, the product mix impact will sit in after that.
Okay, sure. Okay, and lastly on the CapEx.
There is more scope for cost reduction.
Yeah.
And really speaking, Aichi's help in cost reduction is still, we've just scratched the surface. There is a lot more work that we intend to do with them to reduce cost.
Sure. Okay. And lastly on the CapEx, you mentioned 250 to 275 crores once we get the environmental clearance. So, would you be in a position to give us what kind of additional capacity would come up from this 250 to 275 crores? And, how do we plan to fund it? And what would be the timeline for the same? Because we have healthy internal accruals. So
we are targeting in the next 4 to 5 years this capex to be done, which is that this includes our normal replacement capex. It includes investment for environment purposes, because a lot of investment has been done for the environment clearance. This is a big headache for us because Ludhiana comes under critically polluted zone. And if Vardhman Special Steel gets the approval for environment clearance, it will be the first project to get the environment clearance from the center in the last several years in Ludhiana.
Okay.
So this is something unique that we're going to get. So there is a lot of capex which goes in for environment clearance. There is also investment going in for safety. There's investment going in for quality purposes, because to reach that kind of product mix that we're looking at, and for exports, we have to invest in another non-destructive testing line. So there's a big investment going in for that. So, but on the whole with this, we expect to reach a capacity almost 40% higher. So from 180,000 tons of current capacity, we expect to reach 250,000 tons of rolled production.
Okay, sure. And it's been almost a year, but we've had the pandemic in the meanwhile, and we have not got our environmental clearance yet. So, is there any bottleneck right now that we are not getting the environmental clearance from our end, or it's from the other side, from the regulator side?
No, so see, those are, we've already applied to them. They have come up with, we've had one hearing with the committee, so they have pointed out some shortcomings in our proposal. We have addressed those shortcomings. So I think we have a strong proposal now. So, but again, it depends on the approval that we get from this committee.
Okay, sure. And how long, assuming that we get it, say, on the 30th of June, the approval, how long would it take for us to ramp up from?
Very difficult to say, because it's a long process. Once this committee approves, this committee is the main bottleneck. But after that, there are, if this committee, because this is the expert committee, if this committee approves, then the probability of getting approval is almost 100%. So, but the whole approval should take 3 to 4 months. Coming in from the Ministry of Environment. Once that approval comes, I think within a year's time, we'll be ready to at least start building up our capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're clearly going to up our target for next year. As of now, without the approval, 180,000 tons is our capacity limit.
Sure.
So if this approval comes in next year, I think market demand being there, we should be able to touch maybe 200,000 tons, 190 to 200,000 tons.
Okay. And
as the capex comes in, we'll be able to increase our capacity further.
Okay. And just taking this one last question on this capex, we have healthy internal accruals, more than 50 to 75 crores. If I assume 6,000 to 8,000 rupees per ton, on our existing 180,000 tons, that would be a cash flow of more than 50-60 crores per annum. So would it be fair to assume that we would not require any external debt, and not require any external equity also for the next few years? Would that be a fair assessment?
If you look at purely balance sheet angle and our ability to fund this investment, you would be right.
Okay.
However, decisions to raise capital are over and beyond current requirements. There are also strategic reasons. For example, over the next few years, there could be an opportunity for Aichi if they would like to increase their stake. If they wish to increase their stake, we as a company would welcome that. So if that happens, and as Vardhman Group has no plans to divest any stake, the only way for them to increase their stake would be for another preferential issue or something like that. So I'm answering your question in two ways.
Sure.
Just the capex requirement and the balance sheet, we would not need coming to the capital markets.
Sure. Okay.
And as I said, that in our forecast, as of now, we are targeting in the next 5 to 6 years, without any equity infusion, we should be nearing net zero debt, net debt equity of zero.
Right.
We'll be nearing that. So very clearly, the balance sheet does not require any equity infusion.
Correct. Sure. That's very helpful, sir. All the best, and thanks.
Excuse me, sorry. Let me repeat that. With the current plans.
Yeah.
We have already stated our desire that along with Aichi, over the next 10 years, we intend to reach 800,000 to 1 million tons of capacity. So very clearly, over the next few years, there are plans to increase this capacity. So at what stage we decide to take the next step, those are things that we'll be discussing constantly with Aichi. It will depend on how soon we are able to establish the quality for their requirements, how soon we are able to run those kind of products, and how soon we are able to gain the customer confidence of the Japanese customer in Southeast Asia. Once that happens, very clearly, we will face a capacity bottleneck again. We'll come under pressure to expand. And at that stage, larger and larger proportion of our business will be moving to this superior product mix at a higher EBITDA per ton. And at some stage, we'll also start making steels which are patented by Aichi. All that is planned over the next 8 to 10 years. At what stage those happen, at this point, I can't say.
That's
very clearly means that export as a proportion of production is going to increase further from the current levels.
That's very helpful, sir. All the best and thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Devang Sangvi from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity, and Sachin, congratulations on good set of numbers and the initiative to supply oxygen.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know the few products you like to develop with Aichi within the focus areas.
Devang, your voice is a little muffled.
Am I audible now, sir? I'm better?
Yes, yeah, that's better. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, sir. Yeah. So can you throw some light on the products that we like to be the focus area with the Aichi? Any specific product line we like to focus on?
Yeah, so one is, of course, their normal automotive products. So carbon steel that we produce in India for Indian customers will be carbon steel for Aichi requirements also. But the quality requirements that come in there are a much higher level.
Right, sir.
Second would be microalloy steels. We are already producing microalloy steels, but the proportion of microalloy steels will increase. Then SCR steels, SCM steels, those kind of steels, which anyway we are producing, we'll be producing more of those. So it's not that there'll be very new products largely, but it will be the specifications are much tighter for the same products or similar products. And to get even a chance to approve this product, other suppliers don't even have a chance to approve these products. Because each approval costs $1 million at least for one component.
Right, sir.
So we are getting a chance only and only because Aichi is our partner. Otherwise, we would not get that chance. So the point I'm making is the stickiness of this business is very, very high.
Right, sir.
And some of the new products we're making is all the hybrid cars. Even Maruti's hybrid cars, they are going to be in a joint development with Toyota. Now, Toyota's hybrid engines all have steels from Aichi. Developing those products which are going into hybrid cars. Then EVs also, there are some special steels which go into EVs. We've already started supplying some steels to some of the leading EV manufacturers. Of course, we are not permitted to take their name, so we will not be taking their name, but some very well-known brands, we are already supplying steel for EVs. So later, if hydrogen cars become important, so again, the advantage of having a partner like Aichi, which is the steel supplier for Toyota. So, and Toyota is strong in hydrogen cars. If hydrogen cars become the future in times to come, our partner already has the steels which are required for. So those are all things that are in the area of speculation. So largely, we should say the product mix is similar to what we are doing. It's only that the quality specifications are much tighter, and the way some of the areas they look at quality is something no other Indian supplier or no Indian customer looks at. So those are what is going to take some time to develop, and which gives us then the stability that no other supplier can knock us off, and so stickiness of business.
Right, sir. That was very helpful. My second question is regarding this negotiations. Now we are kind of shifted to 3 months negotiation. So this is like a stopgap and the negotiation what we do with OEMs.
Yeah.
So now we are having 3 months negotiation at the moment, scheduling. So it will be a longer term 3 months, or will shift to 6 months when the situation stabilizes for the steel prices?
So if this kind of volatility that is rising, I mean, we have never before seen, I mean, can you imagine, from October, we have had one price increase of 4,700. Then in January, we got a price increase of 6,200. So that is 10,900 rupees, almost 11,000 rupees price increase. And then we have asked for another 6,500 to 7,000 rupees price increase from 1st April. This is crazy.
Yes, sir.
So this is not normal business. Scrap is touching $515.
Right.
This was $260 or $270 maybe a year ago, less than a year ago.
Right, sir.
So these are crazy pricing situation. Commodities are going through the roof, and it's a cost-based push. Now, if you'll see, HRC, hot rolled coils, globally are much higher price than the Indian prices.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Secondly, China has eliminated export duties. So very clearly, steel prices globally are on the rise. If HRC prices rise, the larger steel, Vardhman Special Steel doesn't do HRC, but the larger companies can make HRC as well as the commodity alloy steel. So they would divert capacity to HRC because some of them have flexibility of moving their molten steel to either HRC or to long products. Then commodity long products have also risen in price. So they will rather make those commodity long products than produce alloy steel for the auto market. Then billet exports is also a big opportunity. So they are exporting, the larger companies are exporting billets outside. So I see no reason for the prices to not increase. However, if they have not increased, we can't say. So as in the foreseeable future, with this kind of volatility, I expect the auto companies will also want 3 months and we will also want 3 months. So I would say for the foreseeable future, we would stick to a 3-month negotiation.
Yes, sir. This is helpful. So are we targeting any gross margin or long lasting or near term that we like to have this percentage of gross margin on a sustainable basis?
6,000 to 8,000 rupees EBITDA per ton.
Right. That was near term the gross margin.
Sorry, in the current situation, if the market demand is high, if we get higher than that, we will happily take it. We will not take 6,000 to 8,000. But when I'm saying higher than that, I'm saying this is not a sustainable number. We're getting it. I mean, fourth quarter we got 11,400 rupees.
Right, sir.
So, but to base your future models and forecasts based on 11,000 rupees, and you will be valuing our company maybe at 3,000 crores, which may not be the current reality.
Yes, I will stick to the guidance, sir. Yes, sir, any movement in the graphite electrode costing? Have they moved higher over the last couple of months? That's what we are hearing.
Oh, graphite electrode has been rising continuously. They were at 140 rupees a kilo, currently 225 rupees a kilo.
And what's the trend? They're still on the upward moving trend at the moment in the negotiations that we are seeing?
Because we wanted to buy more, they have halted supplies, so which clearly means that the prices seem to be on the rise.
Right, sir. Right. And this
the other thing is, of course, the demand has also come down because of oxygen shortage. Many steel plants are closed.
Right, sir.
So there is the other factor, the demand is down. But again, as we believe this will be temporary, and again, you'll be happy to note in Punjab, government of Punjab has banned any steel company from production. Vardhaman Special Steels is the only special steel company, only steel company that has been permitted to run, and this order has been signed by the Chief Minister.
That's very happy, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. And the last question, sir, this 250 to 70 crore capex that we are targeting, how much is it for the volume part and how much is it for margin expansion? Is there a breakup on that regard?
No, we are not broken up that way. Because some part of it is, for the extra volume, for the product mix that we are targeting, we need to invest for quality reasons. So really, is it capex for expansion or is it capex for the product mix, which will enable the expansion?
Yes,
separate the two. Environment clearance, investment for environment clearance is required to get the approval. So is it for expansion or is it really for currently we are meeting the environment requirements?
Correct, sir. Thank you, sir, and all the best for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Rohit Ori from Progressive Shares. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Congrats for coming on the list of dividend-paying companies, and hopefully this continues. So my question...
this is Vardhaman Group.
Yes, sir.
We are a cautious, conservative company, as that is our parentage, which is cautious and conservative. So we take time to start. But once we start, very clearly dividends will be maintained or increased.
So that is good to understand that the growth engine of the company operations will continue. So my question is related to the oxygen business that you have done. Can you just elaborate a bit on that? Is it that you were just filling in the empty cylinders and passing it through, or were you making the entire cylinder as well?
So first of all, this is not an oxygen business. We are not in the oxygen business. We are in the steel making business.
Correct.
This is a service we are providing to society around us to save lives, that we are filling cylinders as hospitals send in empty cylinders. Frankly, if you ask me, if oxygen was available to them, we would rather they buy oxygen from other sources. Because please understand, so many trucks coming from hospitals, coming with people coming in, all kind of drivers coming in, helpers coming in, and in that back-breaking work, there's no possibility of wearing masks. They're coming from hospitals, so there is fear in our workers that this is corona, this is coming from corona-tainted people, touched people, and so on. And yet, the spirit of service is so high, our workers are working 16 hours a day because they are saying they're saving lives. And many workers, you'll be happy to note, are contributing the extra hours they are working out of that. This is their seva. They are not taking, some of them are not taking overtime. And we are giving free oxygen to many people, any individual who was coming to our gate. With as long as he had a cylinder, he had a medical report, and we had a 2-member committee examining it. If we were convinced that it was a genuine case, we were saying, okay, bring in a cylinder, we're putting it for free. However, the government has banned this now. So now, government of Punjab has banned this. So we are not allowed to fill oxygen for individuals.
Okay, sir, knowing your nature a little bit, you must have done quite a lot of CSR activities and given for free to the government hospitals. My question is, were there any one-offs that have come in this quarter ending March, or should we be seeing a one-off which is having a low base for June? So was there any one-off revenue generation that happened in quarter 4? Or is this absolutely CSR free activity that you have done?
So there is some revenue from this oxygen, but it is a very small part. It's really as I said, we are not in the oxygen business. I don't even count this as so it will not be reported separately or any such thing. It's a tiny part of the business.
Okay. So last question is looking at the commentary that you have given, which is quite optimistic and with a vision and plan with Aichi and the Japanese counterparts in future. So I'm just trying to be lucky over here. In the coming year, 2022, can we estimate growth of around 12 to 15% on the top line, or try to reach the numbers of FY19, along with improved EBITDA margins of maybe 8 or 10%?
So, volume, we do expect from our current 150,000 tons, we will touch around 170 to 180. So I would say, about 10 to 15% volume increase can be expected. Also, because price is likely to go up, so there would be a kicker based on price also. So I would say 15 to 20% revenue increase is a possibility at this point as we see it now. Of course, forecasts say the commodity cycle is here to stay for some time. But if the revenues come down, the prices come down, then our prices also come down. So I always look at volume. So volume would be, 10 to 15% growth in the coming year, in this year, can be seen. EBITDA margin as a percentage I don't look at.
Okay.
I look at EBITDA per ton, which we have said 6,000 to 8,000 rupees per ton is how you should look at a company. If it is higher than that, it is abnormal profits. If it is lower than 6,000, it will be abnormal margins on the lower side also.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pranay Javeri from J&J Holdings. Please go ahead.
Sir, thank you for this opportunity. First of all, kudos to you for vowing to supply oxygen even with sacrifice of volumes. That's really, really appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sir, if you could broadly throw some light on, say, 5-10 years down the line, where we see maybe a hydrogen or maybe EV car coming in, where the use of aluminum will be a little higher, or how is this specialty steel can be a component in the total weight of the car? I'm just trying to understand with changing dynamics over the next 5-10 years, would this steel be of much more importance, relevance in terms of their weight, and if you can just throw some differentiation in pricing vis-a-vis this other materials, that would be really helpful.
So I don't see any competition at this point from aluminium and other metals, because those parts will come in the surface and the body of the car.
Okay.
So not really in the engine components. Of course, engine components, etc., would come down. So clearly, in an EV, it is expected per vehicle the alloy steel consumption would be lower.
Right.
However, there are two other factors which say that for us, which gives confidence to us to continue our expansion. One, if you look at just the Indian market, we will be a much bigger automobile market than what we are today.
Okay.
So even if, and by as of now, the belief we have is there's no way that all cars will be EV. So there'll still be a very large chunk of either the combustion engine cars or the hybrid cars. We believe hybrid cars are the way to go forward. EV has huge other environmental consequences. The disposal of batteries, for example. Where will you mine lithium from, for example? And today, Tesla and all these companies, they get huge subsidies from the government. So really, at what price will they come? So those are all questions which I am not capable of answering. I'm just raising those questions. So really, 10 years down the line, as you will see, Government of India at one time said by 2030 all vehicles will be EVs. That was a statement made by the government of India about 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. Those statements have stopped because they also realized that this is not practical. So one part is that even if EVs start increasing and per car consumption will go down, there will still be a large volume for current business, and overall number of volume of cars will be way higher than what it is today. So even as a proportion, we believe as Vardhman Special Steel that the volume required of alloy steel will be higher, significantly higher than what it is today. 1. 2, we are talking of supplying to Southeast Asia. We are talking of replacing our Japanese partners in those markets. So there is huge market growth for us for any hybrid cars as well as the combustion engine cars in Southeast Asia. And third, because of this threat of EVs, the chances of new people diving into this industry to get into, if they see the good market, I'm not